Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. I'm changing things up today. Today I am broadcasting an episode that I recorded with my co-host Laurel Crossley for the Boobs, Bods, and Brains podcast. She sat down with me and interviewed me about the queer family planning event that I have running at the 519 Community Centre at 519 Church Street in Toronto, the morning of Saturday, June 8th from 9 until noon. We will have speakers there to talk about a variety of topics that pertain to queer couples and individuals who want to start or grow their families through parenthood. And if you want to know more, have a listen here and visit my website, www.babyready.info.
Well, am I ever excited today, Sam, because we are talking all about and your upcoming baby show Becoming Baby Ready, which is the very first, drum roll please, family planning live in-person event for the queer community. So let's talk all about your show, the impetus for your show, and how we can support you because we love you.
Hi, thank you. Yes, it is the first ever of its kind. And ultimately, you say that what's the impetus for this? Let's hearken back, shall we, to 2021, 2022. You and I were chatting about the idea of me hosting a queer baby show. And at the time, we were both sort of thinking just a regular baby show, like the Mom and Baby Show in Ancaster, or whatever they're called. And it seemed like a neat idea until I went and checked one of those events out. Those are fine. I'm not suggesting that they're not, but it wasn't what spoke to me. I wandered through both of those huge spaces. Had a great chance to catch up with Alana McGinn, who's been a guest on the show, and Julie Cole, who's also been a guest on the show. We chatted for a while I was there, but going booth to booth to booth, all I saw were people trying to sell their products and their services. And I saw nothing except for one booth that reflected that it was a safe space for the queer community, which is huge, especially in a group of people where queer people have to get help to get pregnant. So it's not something that's easy. It's not something that's free. And so now we're having this event, and it just, all of it seemed like not quite what I was looking for, because Julie was there to talk, Alana was there to talk, both on their areas of expertise, but it was a tiny little stage in the back. And I thought, really? These people have not come to hear the wisdom of these speakers. They've come to find out about diapers and onesies. I can find that on any online store. So I started talking to people and did the virtual baby event that launched in September 2022, which then I flipped over to being a podcast as of June 2023. And then last November, I was listening to somebody speak, actually, Leanne Kim, who has also been a guest on this podcast. And she was talking about that time where she just took the bull by the horns, or the reins in her own hands, and said, I want to do an in-person event. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to book this space, and I'm going to hope people come. And that's ultimately what I decided to do. So yeah, I'm doing an in-person event on Saturday, June 8th. It's from 9 a.m. until noon. It's just a 3-hour window of time where I've got queer speakers coming to speak to queer people, queer identifying individuals who would like to have a family someday, whether that's, just around the corner, whether it's 10 years away, just so that they can find out information about some of the things they may want to take into consideration as they're planning this journey.
3 hours is not enough.
I do, I do, but I figured that was a good way to start. I
Yeah.
figured next year it'll be a weekend.
You know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love looking for gaps in product lines or services, and I love the idea of collaboration and community. And so when you started talking about this, or when I guess we were talking about it, and then it's had its little infancy. Now I think it's a toddler. So this shows their toddlerhood,
There you
right?
go.
And next time is school age. So toddlers can only handle 3 hours. So that's why. So then we go to full JK, SK, full on days. So that's kind of how you're going about it, right? Eventually you'll be in graduate school. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But really, kudos to you for recognizing, because you're part of the community and my family is part of the community.
Mhm.
And, it's one of my family members transitioned and was asked about storing their, how do I say that, fluids in anticipation of creating a family down the road. And the problem is, it wasn't economically viable or
Mhm.
something that they considered, or are they still going to be with that partner
Mhm.
because they're in their late 20s? Are they still going to be with that partner 5 years down the road? Will things shift and change? So, having been on the outside and watching my family grappling with that content, this is a burgeoning, hot arena of skill set and professionals that we need to showcase that can support families.
Mhm. Mhm. And it is expensive. One piece of information that I have learned over the last couple of years is that if someone has transitioned and they have retained their reproductive organs and they have a uterus and ovaries, they can come off testosterone and can harvest eggs later on. So it's not a decision that needs to be made right away. This same with someone who is taking estrogen or other medications. As long as they have their organs, then they can come off the hormones and they can preserve, because there was for a long time this belief that if we didn't do it before they started hormones, that the hormones were somehow going to impact the sperm, they were going to impact the eggs, and they were going to make it impossible for a biologic family to be created with the use of this person's biology. That has changed, which is really kind of a very cool piece of information to have and to know, because it isn't something that needs to be decided unless surgery is imminent.
And this
But
was a surgical procedure. So
yeah,
that's what, but
yeah.
I can't imagine being that person and you're getting ready for life altering surgery. And they're saying, oh,
Hmm.
and by the way, if you want to plan a family,
Yeah.
so we don't talk about, I feel like we're not talking about that. We're talking about the transition. We're talking about what that's going to be like
Hmm.
and how
Hmm.
we physically take care of ourselves. And then where there's a psychological preparation, but we're not talking about family planning as another step,
Hmm.
because and it's a gap. It's a huge gap. And our society is changing every single flipping second,
Hmm.
on what defines family. And the right to have children, if you so choose, is such a powerfully beautiful experience. And I just get chills thinking about it. In fact, I think that you have no clue what's going to happen. I keep telling you that.
You do keep saying that.
National shows, girl.
There you go. That would be fantastic, because that would suggest that the opportunities are availing themselves to all members of the queer community. That's really what my vision is that everyone has access to this information so that they have the opportunity to think and plan about creating a family of their own. There'll be a lawyer there speaking about the law from the surrogacy perspective and what you need to take into consideration when you are employing an egg donor or hiring a surrogate and employing a surrogate to carry a child on your behalf and that kind of thing. And also what the costs of everything are, because it's prohibitive. Outside of getting pregnant all by yourself in the province of Ontario, and I can only speak about the market that we live in, and I'll call it a market because it costs so much money. It is a market. Then the cost of reproductive assistance is for the most part not covered. Some pieces of it are covered by some insurance companies, and there is the opportunity, if someone in the dynamic of the people wanting to conceive has, if at least one person has a uterus, then there is the option of putting themselves in for a lottery for the IVF funded IVF cycle in the province of Ontario. But that is not something that's applicable for same-sex male couples because they don't have a uterus. And so they can't use that towards employing a gestational surrogate. So there's still so far we have to come but really it's about leveling the playing field in terms of information. And we also need to get to a point where we level the playing field in terms of finances as well.
Let's talk about all the guests you have. So you mentioned a lawyer.
Mhm.
Who else is repping at your show?
I have a family doctor coming to speak from a couple of perspectives. One is about the surrogacy journey that he and his husband are currently on, and with a child that's expected this summer. But also just about getting your family doctor involved in your care if you're thinking about starting a family. And we typically think about it if we're thinking about having a child biologically, whether it's, we're going to provide a gamete or not. We want to make sure we're in good health before we share those gametes or use our body for the pregnancy. But I think it's also important for people who are planning for adoption. Let's know what our basic health status is before we even go through this journey, because it's going to be trying, it's going to be taxing emotionally and physically to go through this process. So I think starting with your family doctor is a great place to start. I have a psychotherapist coming to talk about processing trauma before the process of family creation starts, because I think that that's something that often gets overlooked. But I think that it's also something that is potentially that much more profound or obvious or needed by the queer community if they have not had an open and welcome journey to coming out. How do I become a parent when my own family was not necessarily receptive, or I didn't feel safe? So processing some of that trauma. Those are some of the guests I've got lined up for sure. My hope is to have a foster parent, a parent who's fostered through the public system to, because we're recording this far enough in advance, I don't have all of my speakers secured. But I want to talk about the Children's Aid Society and fostering to adopt in this province and what's involved, because I tell you, anyone I've talked to who has adopted through the Children's Aid Society or who has just simply fostered, which takes to me a special kind of individual to be able to do that. Things that they have learned from the Children's Aid Society, and every single one of them says every parent should have to take these classes, whether they have children of their own biologically, or whether they're fostering, or whether they're adopting. It's just such a gift. So I'm excited about that possibility. So I'm pulling the people together to tell their stories and to share their wisdom so that attendees come away from this event feeling like they've got some questions answered. Proudly working collaboratively with Pollen Fertility, a fairly new fertility clinic located right at Yonge and Eglinton. They are an executive exclusive sponsor for this event, and they're just so excited to make sure that the queer community knows the doors are open to ask questions, to just do consults. They don't have to employ Pollen, although the staff at Pollen has been fantastic anytime I've communicated with them, but they just want them to know that they're safe, and that's so big.
What do you think moving forward? Like, I think we were talking about it being a weekend event, but what would you like to see with this show moving forward? What's the future of this show?
I think really the sky's the limit. I mean, I have heard of different organizations. Many people are familiar with Men Having Babies. They're a fantastic organization. Please don't misunderstand me when I speak and say, but they, full stop, on their own, they are a fantastic organization. Doing research on some of their sites, communicating with them, I understand that their primary focus is obviously working with men and not the entire queer community. So that leaves a big group unassisted. But also, they often work more with surrogacy and providing resources for surrogacy information and connection to surrogacy agencies than adoption, especially public adoption. So I would love to see this baby becoming baby ready really being more just a broad spectrum resource and platform for people to come to learn, to be able to get what they need from one spot, whether or not they want to learn about reciprocal IVF, whether they want to learn about IUI, whether they want to learn about surrogacy or adoption or whatever it is. Um, that's really what I want to see, and I'd love to see it happen on a global scale. But we'll tackle Toronto, and then we will move on from there.
I just see that this is just as I said, it is just, it's something that is explosive in nature because I don't know, I just see a very clear vision of it. And I see that I'm hanging out with you on your road trips across Canada. You say, Laurel, I'm in the Nova Scotia this weekend. Do you want to hang out? I'll go, yeah, okay.
And then we'll fly from there to
Yeah,
Vancouver.
yeah.
There you go. We'll just do the things.
Absolutely. And your passion for supporting families in your community it's beautiful. It's a beautiful
Thank you.
thing. And you're just a huge advocate and you know so many people. And
Mhm.
speaking of so many people, how many people would you like to see attend your event? And what demographic are you looking? Are you looking for want to be parents? Are you looking for current parents in the community that maybe want to grow their family? Are you looking at grandparents that would come? Aunties and uncles that would come? Like who's your demographic?
Fair. The space is not huge, the space I've rented for the first time, so I'm probably looking at between 50 and 75 people attending. And there are tickets available on my website already. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, then get your ticket while we still have some. The demographic, I think, primarily because of the way that the people are speaking and the topics they'll be speaking on, I would think it's primarily going to be for people who have it in their mind that they want to start or grow their family sooner rather than later. So in the next few years. My hope is to have a financial advisor come out as well to speak. I had someone lined up to speak, and I've got an extremely apologetic email back this week from him saying that his children their recital date had been changed and recital time had been changed. So, you know what? Family first. He has to go and watch his twin girls in their summer recital. So he won't be here, but he and I are working together to try and find somebody else. But it is really important that all the speakers are queer, and so sometimes that can be harder to find the person. So any listeners who know queer professionals who work in this kind of capacity, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And maybe this isn't the show for your friend or your family member or yourself to speak at, but maybe next time would be the perfect opportunity. Um, Grandparents it would be great. People who already have a family, certainly, especially if they've already started their family. There's some people I've talked to over the last few years who started their families in a more traditional way because they were late to come out. So they had a child or two, with an opposite sex partner. And now they've come out and they would like to grow their family with a partner of the same sex. And they need more assistance with that. And they want to know what's involved because it seemed so straightforward the first time. How do we do it now? Because it's not so straightforward.
And I was just thinking that it's not just coming out of that traditional family, but if they had children through their various means and they were in their same-sex couples, um, then I'm imagining that things have changed. Like the
Sure.
evolution of fertility has like burst on the scenes. Like there's all sorts of new ways and new things happening. Like it's a burgeoning science, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if, a family who's saying, uh-oh, our kids are now 5 and 7, and we're thinking we'd like to have a couple more. Uh-oh, well, 5 and 7 years ago, have things evolved? So it might be something for them as well, a show for them as well. You
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Yeah.
What was I going to ask you about that? Do you think it would ever evolve as your demographic evolves, where then you would include, like, of course, I'm thinking big picture, future,
Mhm.
it would include maybe parenting support at some
Well,
point.
and I mean, and you're talking to me who is a parenting coach, and so that's my wheelhouse for sure. Yes, I've been a birth worker for over 25 years. Helping people create their families is something that is deep seated as a passion of mine. But I also work as a parenting coach, and I would love to see that be an evolution. That if it was a 2-day event down the road, where day one is creating the family, day two is with the family, kind of thing. That would be fantastic for sure.
Oh, I'm so glad I'm channeling your future self there.
Me too. Me too. As long as you keep me posted as to what is happening, then that's great.
I'll just give you the downloads that I get. And I wonder too, since you started, like what makes you the expert? I think I want to talk about that. What makes you the expert who puts this together? And I know most people would say, why not? But I'm going to say, what sets you apart?
I think a big part of it is the connection that I've had with my clients over the years. Having done this and worked with literally thousands of families, and the feedback I've got from them instills a confidence in me that I can do this. But it's been funny, I'm going to say 15 years ago, I used to have a couple of families that I did a lot of parent coaching with, and they used to say they were going to start a website called Ask Sam, because anytime they had a parenting question come up, they would just ask Sam. And so they thought they would just take all my answers and put them on a website, and then there would be the Ask Sam website. Um, but that just reaffirms for me how much I have witnessed people feeling that I can provide them with the service that they need. And then I hear other people in the community that I speak to. Every single person that I've interviewed for my podcast, when I talk to them, and they're already either queer parents alone or queer parents who are professionals who work with people within the baby family creation kind of world, every single one of them says, I wish that this type of an organization and this type of a program was available when I was thinking about starting my family. And so that tells me that there's a need. So why me? Because there's a need and nobody else is doing it. So for crying out loud, let's get it done.
How we operate. For crying out loud, when there's no one else, we just do it.
Right.
That's that.
Exactly.
That's our modus operandi. Is that how you say that?
Exactly.
I think so. Well, I hate to tell you this, Sam, but our official 22 minutes is up. So can you tell the people A, where they can find out more information about you, B, where they can purchase the tickets and what button to press, and C, if they're a somebody who wants to get involved with you, how do they get in touch with you?
The easiest place to purchase tickets or to contact me is probably through my website, and that's www.babyready.info. And baby ready is all one word. There is right on the homepage, there's at the top of the page, there's a link to information about the show. There's a link to purchase tickets that'll take you straight to the purchase ticket page. There's information about the coaching that I do if people are kind of past having that baby, creating that family. They want a little bit more support in the parenting, their child or their teen or their toddler or whomever. That's there, but there's also a contact page there as well that they can just reach out and tell me what it is that they want to talk to me about, whether they want to be a guest on my podcast, whether they want to be a speaker at the show, whether they know somebody, whether they want to sponsor the event. All of it is easiest there. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more about things or see how I function and operate, and you want to check me out on social, I have a little bit of a following on Instagram and TikTok. And on both locations, I'm at Baby Ready LGBTQ.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
so
you.
much. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.